Hey, Erik here, Erik Bohlin with New Hope Counseling or Simple Recovery. So, we're talking about taming the terrible twos, and we'll get to the taming parts, but we're in the understanding part here. So, previously we talked about how the beginning stages of this grieving process of separating. So, one big aspect is anxiety, self-soothing behavior, and how we deal with our independence and how we eventually become interdependent. But we don't come into adulthood just being interdependent. We come into it first being dependent. And some have said out of all the mammals, we're really quite dependent upon um, our, we say, caregivers or our parents. Horses can walk. That's wild. I would imagine have a baby. Oh, look, they're walking around. Yeah, no, it doesn't work that way for whatever reason. Um, so when we have huge anxiety, and if one wanted to look at why are we anxious, it's a sense deep down, I'm not getting what I want. You could pray about that, chew on that for a while. Like any anxiety one would ever have, it's somehow I'm not getting, like I'm afraid of a ladder. Well, I want safety. I want people to like me. And so I'm really anxious around people. So, yeah. So if we want something and we're afraid we're not going to get it, and it's usually future oriented, then we might start to be controlling or manipulative to try to get that met. Okay, so you see where I'm going. If you're a 2-year-old and you're not getting what you want, and you're a tiny person, these people are big. We forget that. There's so much power in a 2-year-old. So they compensate for their size through screaming, through yelling. They're not so sophisticated verbally, because there are some kids that go through terrible twos at 4 or 5, and it's just really, really scary. Like, you hate me. They can verbalize, you hate me, mother or dad. You might as well take me and kill me now, which just freaks people out. But when you're 2, that's how you feel. You feel like, well, I hate this. You're not giving me what I want, and I'll scream, I'll throw a fit, I'll hit, I'll bite. Let's take a side note. Why is hitting, biting, these things happening? Before mom, let's say like mom and dad, refused with that child. Fancy terminology is undifferentiated ego mass. So there's not a sense of differentiation. So if I bang my head against the wall, in theory, it should hurt your head and you should give me the candy for breakfast. That's why the tantrums, the hurting, I hate you, and the kicking, and it's supposed to hurt me, it's supposed to hurt you, which it kind of does. It kind of gets attention. And you can see that if one doesn't outgrow this behavior, and no disrespect to people who struggle with cutting or, a lot of suicidal ideation, but what happens is they're kind of stuck in that stage where the only way I know to get attention is to kind of harm myself. So the more successful the parent can understand what's happening and differentiate, then, well, when you're done with that, we'll talk about techniques later, but when you're done with that, I'll come back when you're calmed down. Meanwhile, the kids are hurting themselves. If we don't feel the pain, they're going to feel the pain eventually, and they realize this is not productive. And that's why catering behavior, oh, dear, here's the chocolate for breakfast, because it's basically emotional. It's not blackmail but it's extortion. It's this, you do what I want you to do, and I'm going to use your feelings as a parent to get what I want. I'm going to make you feel guilty. I'm going to make you feel afraid or angry, so that then you can feel guilty and afraid that you did that. They say, this is a hint for a future video, is that the two most common parenting errors, and this comes from this book, might as well, 1, 2, 3 Magic by Dr. Thomas Fallon. He says that are too many words, and too much feeling. And that's really, really true. The parents that are more effective don't use a lot of words. They use a lot more actions. And they don't have a lot of feeling about it. They have feelings for their kids, but they're not going to feel too guilty. They're not going to feel too frightened. They're not going to feel too angry. And when I coach parents, I try to help the parent. So much of the work is helping the parent feel good about their parenting, helping the parent calm down, saying, nope, it's okay. They're going to cry, all night, like having to sleep in their own bed. They don't cry all night, but it's about a 10-day process by which they'll go crazy. But then they eventually settle down and. So taking care of our state actually helps the kid feel more secure, more comfort in the long run. So the kid doesn't get what they want. The parent walks away and all of that self-harm behavior. And I think it's good to go to a therapist if you need a therapist to get that confidence that, yeah, this looks horrible. It looks horrible, but it's not horrible. It's better that it's a 2-year-old than 12, What if they start hitting you? What if you're the one, getting hurt? That can be alarming. The first thing to realize is this is temporary. In my mind, when this one goes, yeah, it's going to be temporary, all right, if you want to live to see another day. No, that isn't how I really think. But yeah, no, I'm not going to live with this for very long. And if parents tolerate that, because they themselves have anger management problems, and I've worked a lot with anger management people. A lot. I actually got into therapy based on going to anger management. That's another story. My wife and I grew up with families that were just not that healthy, and we were replaying these family dynamics. But if you look at any adult anger management situation, it's basically a tantrum. It's a tantrum in that the person didn't get what they wanted, and so they use anger, scaring people, throwing things, fighting. It's basically a tantrum. So this is why it's so helpful to understand terrible twos now and to get through it. So parents respond by setting appropriate limits. You're not going to hurt me. And the best way, this is my top strategy, is to give it, you attend to it, but you don't give it attention. So you pick the child up, you put them in their room, and then you leave. Or you leave, depending on the situation. It's like, and I love this as a metaphor. I use it a lot. I guess I can say this. Apple, phones and all this. If you put in the wrong password, it says you might need to wait an hour. And I've been there. I'll put in the password again as if it would change anything. You need to wait 6 hours. We did one device, I'll confess, that it says you can try back in 18 months. So the point there is, if the child is starting to harm you or harm anybody else, that is a password where, okay, we're done now. And I will attend to you. Probably, if they're a 2-year-old, probably 5 to 10 minutes. 2 things. One is to calm myself down. And I may need that time out. It works really well. Second of all, it gives them time to regroup and to realize this is not the right path to get to what you want. A simple phrase is, when you're calm, I think it's okay to say, when you hurt me, and depending on their cognitive abilities, we teach them to say, you hurt me, I need an apology. You need to say you're sorry, because that's what we're going to be saying when this little person, I was going to say creature, this little person, a boy or girl, is out in the playground, and if they start hurting someone else, that is embarrassing, by the way. My kids weren't really like built that way. They're very kind people. But it's very embarrassing to a parent when the child goes and pulls hair or grabs the toy. And again, the two um, weaknesses, too much emotion, too many words. So we don't want to have too much emotion about it. We have to skip the embarrassment part and attend to it and say, okay, Tommy, it looks like we're going to be playing. You're going to actually sit over here. This is hinting at a future discussion about how this book works, the 1, 2, 3 magic, because really what it is, it's giving that person space. You could call it a timeout, but it's really different. That there's no punitive aspect to it. It's you're removed from the situation, and now you don't get any entertainment. You don't get to be with the friends. How would that help as a person, as an adult? If we get too angry, we're going to step aside and process it and come back and be presentable and polite and respectful. And so it stops the train wreck from going further. Okay. If you have a child who's 3, 4, 5 hurting you, I would get some therapy. There is something not going well, and it's no shame for you. It's just the idea that let's get some support, because it's not going to work well when they're 10, 11, 12 hurting their own parents. There's no semblance of who's boss, who's in control. And they're going to, I'm not here to predict the future. They're going to have problems with students. They're going to have problems with teachers, and you're going to have some problems. So you need that extra support as a parent. For 2-year-old, they'll grow out of it. What do? I try to comfort parents. In fact, I think the next video will be about the reassurances I give to parents who have a 2-year-old. So with that, you take care and have a great day.